Right, we are on G7 and 8. We are working with Pythagorean theorem and the distance formula. We're on page 25. Okay, so number one, a 10-foot ladder is placed 8 feet away from a wall. How high does the ladder reach up the wall? So if I were to draw a picture of this, I have my wall here, it's supposed to be straight, and my ladder is placed 8 feet away from the wall, so we'll call this distance 8 feet. And here's our ladder. We can even make it a picture of a ladder, right? Okay, and it's a 10-foot ladder, so we know that height is 10. We're looking at how high does it reach right here on the wall. So we're looking for this side. Well, hopefully you know that this right here is a right angle, and we can find the missing side from a right triangle by using Pythagorean theorem. Figure out which side you're missing. Are we missing C or not? Well, the C is the longest side, and it's across from the right angle. So no, we're not missing C. We're missing either A or B. Okay, I'm going to call the one that we know A. So we're going to plug in 8 for A. B we don't know. We're going to call that the x squared, don't forget, equals C squared. There. So now we're going to do the squares. All right, 8 squared is 64. I still have x squared here equals 10 squared, which is 100. To solve for x, we need to undo the 64. Okay, then I get x squared alone equals 100 minus 64, 36. At this point, we do not have the answer. This is x squared, and I want x. Okay, I just want plain old x. So to undo the 2, the squared there, I need to take the square root. So I'm going to show that in another step here. If I write that again now, on top of it, I'm going to put the square root sign. Okay, that square root undoes the squared on the x, leaving me with plain old x. And we know that the square root of 36 is 6. And what do we have here? This ladder is in feet. So 6 feet would be our answer. That would be how high up the wall the ladder is. All right, solve for the unknown side. Okay, again, we have a right triangle here, and we know that this is our longest side, which is C. So if I use my Pythagorean theorem, I can find the missing side. So if A is 12, then I have 12 squared plus the unknown side, B squared, equals C, which is 20 squared. All right, 12 squared, you guys know that's 144, plus B squared equals 20 squared, which is 400. To get B squared alone, we're going to subtract 144 from both sides, leaving me with just B squared on the left, equaling 400 minus 144, which is 256. Again, we don't have the answer. We have B squared. We just want B. How are we going to undo the squared? Well, I'm going to show it in this step. To undo the squared, I'm going to take the square root. The square root of B squared is B. That's what we want. And of course, we had to do it to the other side too to keep our equation in balance. And the square root of 256 is 16. So 16 meters is our missing side. All right, number 3. Mr. Smith travels 8 miles west to work. So Mr. Smith goes 8 miles west. Mrs. Smith travels 15 miles south. How many miles away do Mr. and Mrs. Smith work from each other? So, if we start at a point, we need to go west and south, so maybe I'll start up here. Call this home. You draw this with me. From home, Mr. Smith is going west. That's this direction, right? He goes west 8 miles. Mrs. Smith also starts at home, but goes 15 miles south. I don't need to write that. You always know that's south. So she's going this way, and that's 15 miles. We should know that going west and going south is right angles of each other. And we want to know the distance from their two works, this hypotenuse of this right triangle. So we want to know the hypotenuse of that right triangle. We know that a squared plus b squared equals c squared, where a I'm going to call 8. So 8 squared plus the other side 15 squared is the unknown side, c squared. 8 squared is 64, while 15 squared is, lots of interruptions today, 15 squared is 225. That will equal c squared. Since these are on the same side, I can add them up. That gives me 289. All right, so c squared is alone. All I need to do now is get the c by itself by undoing the squared. You guys know we just did it a bunch of times. We're going to take the square root of it. Whatever we do to one side, do to the other. So I get c by itself equals the square root of 289, which is 17 miles. All right. Number 4. What is the distance from A to B? All right. A is down here. B is over here, and it's on the top of this rectangular prism. Well, how about if I first go from A to this corner over here? That's a right triangle because we have a right angle here. That's a right angle. And the distance, it is a right triangle in there, okay? Let me make that a little bit more clear for you. From A to here, that is a straight line. Can't really make a straight line very well, and this is a right angle right there. It doesn't so much look like it, but it's because it's three-dimensional. It's hard to see. That is a right angle, though. So that we know is the longest side is the one we're trying to find. So a squared plus b squared equals c squared, and this is not a to b. This is just a to that bottom corner first. So maybe I'll label this as a to bottom corner. That's what we're finding here. So let's call it 9 as one of the sides, right? 9 squared plus the other side is 12 squared, and we don't know c. That's going to be my dotted line there. So the distance from A to the bottom corner will be the c. So 9 squared is 81, 12 squared is 144, and 81 plus 144 is 225. They're on the same side, so I could add them. And then we need to square root both sides. So the square root of 225 is equal to the square root of c squared, giving me 15 equaling that hypotenuse of c. Now that's not the full distance, all right? We have 15 is to the bottom corner. Now, from bottom corner up to B, well, how high is that? From the bottom corner, a different color here, we went from A to here. That was the distance we've already found. Now we need to go from there up here, and that's a distance of 5. So if we add 5 plus our original 15, we get 20 meters as our total distance from A to B. All right, next page, the distance formula. Find the distance between -2, 2 and 3, -1. Now you could definitely take a piece of graph paper, graph the 2 points, and use Pythagorean theorem. That's absolutely fine. The distance formula, if you remember, comes from Pythagorean theorem. We are going to use the distance formula. So you're going to write this with me. The distance formula is the square root of, big square root sign, x2 minus x1 squared plus y2 minus y1 squared. It's just the changes in the x squared and the changes in the y squared. Add them together, take the square root. So this is x1, y1. This is x2 and y2. So if we plug in what we have here, and I'm going to do it step by step. You can skip steps if you get things, but there are some negative signs in here. I want to make sure we have it all clear. So for now, write all the steps down. All right, we want x2 first. x2 is 3. And we have a minus sign that comes from our formula. And x1 is also negative, so now I have 2 negative signs. I'm going to put it in parentheses. All right, and then that gets squared. So that is x2 minus x1 squared. And then I have y2, which is -1. Minus from the formula, y2 minus y1, which is 2 squared. All right, so the distance is going to be, well, let's see. 3 minus a -2 is really just 3. I'm going to, again, write it all out. 3 plus 2, that's all that means. And this other one, we can do that out. -1. Actually, I'll write it like this. -1 plus a -2. That's what that means. Okay, again, some people already know this and can skip steps. It's not a big deal. So 3 plus 2 is 5, and we have 5 squared. You can put it in parentheses if you want. This one I have to put in parentheses because it's going to be negative. This is a -3 when I add those together. And the square root of 5 squared, we got 25. And -3 squared, don't forget it's going to become positive when I square something. So -3 times -3 is a +9. So we have the square root of 25 plus 9. 25 plus 9 is 34. And the square root of 34 is approximately 5.8. I rounded. And you can actually use squiggly lines if you're going to round. Do we have any units on this one? Nope, no units. So there you go, 5.8. All right, find the length of the line. What? Find the length. Okay, they just messed up there. They want just the length of this. They want how far is it from here to here. And since it's already graphed for us, why don't we create a right triangle? I'm going to create this right triangle. Go straight down and straight across. That creates my right angle. And now we're just going to count the sides. This side, to the left here is 3. If I count the distance between those two, between here and here is 3. And then on the bottom here is the distance of 4. Those two dots are 4 apart. This one and that one. So I can find c squared, or c, by using my formula. A squared plus b squared equals c squared. You can also use the distance formula for this one. It will work. but for now we're just going to use this. I think it's a little bit faster and you guys like this one better anyways. 3 squared plus 4 squared equals c squared, and somebody might already know, I bet you a lot of you already know what the answer is because I taught you this one, but we're going to do it out just to make sure. 9 plus 16 is c squared. They're on the same side, so I can add them up and take the square root of both sides. Therefore, I have 5 equals c. Give yourself a pat on the back if you saw that ahead of time. We know it's a 3, 4, 5 right triangle. Okay, number 3, find the distance between 2, 0 and negative 2, 0. We have to use our formula again for this one. Okay, we have x2 minus x1 squared plus y2 minus y1 squared. Notice I say everything out loud, okay? You should be saying it either out loud if you want or in your head. Say it with me. That'll help you remember it. I promise. I promise, I promise. We have x1 here, y1, and x2, y2. All right, so x2 is negative 2, subtract x1, and y2 is 0, subtract y1, all right, this is not 0, so be careful. This is really negative 2 plus negative 2, it's getting more negative. This is negative 4 squared. The other one is 0. 0 minus 0 is 0. And of course, 0 squared is going to be 0. Negative 4 squared is negative 4 times negative 4, which is a positive 16 plus nothing. So we're doing the square root of 16, which is 4 exactly. And the last one for this, we want the distance between here and here. All right, I can create a right triangle on either side of this. I'm going to go this way. That creates a right triangle, or right angle right there, so I know the hypotenuse is that longer side there, the one I don't know. I can find this bottom side, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 here, 8 here. And I have a squared plus b squared equals c squared. All right, 6 squared is 36, 8 squared is 64. If I add those together, since they're on the same side, that's 100. And you guys know the square root of 100.